All right, week 8 college football breakdown here. A little Wednesday night Sun Belt Fun Belt action. We got Georgia State traveling to Appalachian State. I think App State is a 10-point home favorite here in the standalone game. Pretty standard total at 58.5. That's kind of the first thing that jumps out to me. I feel like this total is a bit low. One thing when betting totals, and specifically when betting overs, is there a ton of repeatability on both sides? Is what we've seen from either offense not going to really be able to translate in this matchup? In my opinion, I think each of these offenses is going to be able to do what they want to do in this game. Neither defense has particularly impressed me this year. App State's defensive line hasn't been overly disruptive. Think their secondary can be had as well. Their obvious strength is that linebacking core and is certainly going up against the run. This is not an easy matchup for that area of their defense, though. Georgia State's a team that, with Tucker Gregg, with Jameis Williams, that is a really good 1-2 punch. One of the best running back rooms in the Sun Belt. While App State's run defense is their strength, is it so good as to where I think they're going to be able to totally shut down Georgia State's running game? No, I don't. Especially Jameis Williams. He's really that home run hitting threat out of the backfield. 6.8 yards per carry last year, 5.9 yards per carry this year. And that's still kind of taking in some of their harder games earlier in the season against Power 5 competition. This is going to be a heavyweight matchup in the ground game. From there, Darren Granger, quarterback at Georgia State, he's not as efficient as you'd like. His completion percentage is right in the mid-50s, which on the surface, very low. I'm not a guy that judges quarterbacks only by completion percentage, though. If you look at it, he's still over 8 yards per attempt. It's honestly pretty impressive to see a guy complete 55, 56% of his passes, yet still be able to be over 8 yards per attempt. What that shows is he's kind of a boomer bust guy. He's going to be able to hit on some explosive plays through the air. It's not going to be as efficient as you'd like. He's not going to throw a lot of high percentage passes, but that's pretty conducive towards an over. Incompletion stop the clock, and if you strike, that helps the over as well. So I actually think Georgia State's style offensively will be able to translate in this game. From an efficiency standpoint, App State's defense, by my efficiency metrics, rank outside the top 100 in college football. So I'm not necessarily afraid to play against the Mountaineers defense. I do, however, really like this App State offense. Chase Bryce, we all know who Chase Bryce is, but very experienced player at this point. 16 touchdowns to 3 interceptions this year. He's got that similar, 8.5 yards per attempt mark as Granger does, but way more efficient, 65% completion. He too has an explosive run game at his disposal. It hasn't been the healthiest room for App State this year. Cam Peoples, their top back, is actually questionable for this game. The one thing that helps them, though, they got Nate Noel back a few weeks ago from injury. Both those guys are really good as long as they have one of those guys going, which they will have Noel in this game. And if they have Peoples, that's only an added bonus. This is an App State ground attack that's really lethal. I look at Georgia State's defense, and their defensive line is probably not going to be able to create much pressure in this game, given App State is pretty solid along their offensive line. Don't really like the way they're going to step up against this set of running backs. And their secondary has been the clear weakness of that defense this year. Chase Bryce is plenty capable of taking advantage of that Georgia State secondary. So one other thing when considering totals is pace. I wouldn't say either one of these teams runs fast. Both are pretty average, but both have shown tendencies that if they get down, if the game situation calls for it, not going to be afraid to up the tempo a little bit. Don't think we're going to get a slow pace game, to say the least. So getting a pretty standard total here at 58.5, I think it's a little bit low. I don't think either defense, from what they've shown this year, deserves the benefit of the doubt. And I also think both these offenses are pretty balanced. And, balanced offenses is going to lead to higher scoring games. If you can establish a ground game, it's going to open up the deep passing game. These teams that come out and throw the ball 55, 60 times a game, there's a reason why they don't put up that many points on the board. They're very predictable. Both these teams can create explosive plays in multitude of ways, and I think that does translate in this matchup. So I haven't locked this in yet, and I'm not exactly sure if I will. I'm recording this on Tuesday night. It's a Wednesday night game. Probably going to decide on this in the morning. You see my Twitter handle there. Make sure you're following me on Twitter to be sure if I'm on this or not. But my best look on this game is absolutely the over 58.5. As far as a side, 10 would seem like, a few too many points for me, given that App State, is 3-3 on the year. They haven't exactly put everything together. Coming off a bye week, though, this could absolutely be a situation where we see App State's best performance of the year. I just don't feel good enough about Georgia State's ability to take advantage of App State's weaknesses, and just don't like the way their defense in particular is going to step up in this matchup. I'm going to lay off the side. And if I do play this game here on the standalone Wednesday night Sun Belt Fun Belt game of the week, I will be on the over 58.5.